What's going on, everybody? It is your boy here, Controversy. Today, guys, I'm going to be doing a review to one of Kendrick's most critically acclaimed albums ever to be released, to Pimp a Butterfly. Now, let's get to it. Alright, so this album offers a great lineup of artists that essentially merge and change the overall sound of the album. We have soul singer Bilal, and George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic, solo bassist Thundercat, underrated FMC Rhapsody, and one of the Isley brothers. So essentially the production in this album, is quite unique. You know, you have some hip-hop jazz to some 90s boom bap production, as well as some sonic and funk production, which I thought it was quite appealing. You know, hearing the different sounds in this album, quite amazing. All right, but I'm gonna go track by track. We're just gonna break it down, you know, really get into the meanings of every song because they're quite special. But yeah, let's get to it. All right, so first up we have Wesleys Theory featuring George Clinton and Thundercat, and this song Kendrick references Uncle Sam, which Uncle Sam is a personification of America, also the U.S. government, you know, and essentially he talks about how Uncle Sam, which is America, has sort of promoted this idea of consumption, and how a lot of black artists, you know, like Kendrick himself, they're trying to essentially get them to overconsume, you know, which is buy more than what they need. You know, they want them to use their money to buy luxurious items such as jewelry, fancy cars, designer clothes. And essentially this album has a really interesting meaning. You know, Kendrick is essentially the butterfly that the music industry wants to pimp, thus to pimp a butterfly. You know, they want to use his art and use it for their personal gain, but essentially Kendrick will gain nothing from it. He'll just be fucked over, you know. And it's the same thing with these celebrities. If they keep, you know, consuming, if they keep buying these useless items, one, they're gonna be out of debt. You know, they're not going to be able to pay their taxes when, you know, they're collected, and they're going to find themselves committing tax fraud, and they're going to be doing some jail time for that, you know, falsely giving false information to the IRS. Yeah, they're going to be in trouble for that. And this essentially references Wesley Snipes, an actor who essentially did the same thing. You know, he committed tax fraud. He didn't want to pay his taxes. He probably was in the same situation, and Kendrick likes to call that Wesley Sniped, which if you're in the same situation he was, committing tax fraud, then you get Wesley Sniped, and that's why it's called Wesley's Theory, because if you keep buying all these useless items, you're going to end up being out of debt, you're not going to be able to pay your taxes, you're going to commit tax fraud, you're going to end up like Wesley Snipes. Yikes. Up next we have For Free, the interlude. In this song, again, Kendrick references Uncle Sam, America, but this time he talks about a different theme, kind of similar in a way. And how Uncle Sam kind of like embeds into the black man's head that there's no value in him, that he means nothing in the world, you know, and that the only way he's actually going to be, you know, somebody in the world is through being a baller, you know, somebody either being a rapper or a sports star, someone who's getting money, you know, like. And Kendrick, the big meaning of that is that Kendrick is basically he sees America for like kind of taking the value and the honor out of the black man and kind of like using him. You know, the only way you're really gonna be accepted into this world is if you're somebody important, somebody who's making money, you know, by being a rapper or a sports star. That's essentially what For Free is about. I thought that was quite insightful. You know, there's definitely a lot of insightful tracks in this album, quite amazing. And then this goes on to King Kante. And King Kante, this song is a song about, you know, black empowerment, having pride in yourself. And it's basically Kendrick finding himself, you know, sticking to his roots, acknowledging where he's from. I'm from Compton, California, and I'm proud to show it. I'm not ashamed of it, you know. And King Kante is essentially, Kante, that name is alluding back to Kante Knight, who was a slave in this sort of fictional show that Kendrick grew up watching as a kid, which was The Roots, you know, and how Kante Knight was essentially somebody who tried to escape, you know, the oppression of his slave master, and it would cut off his feet, The connection that Kendrick draws between that to sort of, King Kante is that essentially now that he's a king, the industry is afraid that he's gonna run off with the rap game, because he's like controlling it. So might as well just cut off my feet, to keep me from running away with the rap game. But essentially, it's a song about black empowerment, having pride in yourself, sticking to your roots and acknowledging where you're from. Quite amazing, quite inspirational as well. Then we have Institutionalized featuring Bilal, Anna Wise, and Snoop Dogg. So in Institutionalized, Kendrick essentially feels trapped in the four corners of the cocoon. Because again, he's the butterfly. You have to pay attention to that. It's pretty key. And he feels because he always finds himself, even though he's like famous now and he has all this money and has attained all this success, he finds himself always going back to the hood, going back to Compton, going back to his hood roots. And it's this same hood mentality that has him trapped. It kind of clouds his mind. The only thing he can see is the hood. He can't see anything else. So the whole meaning of it is just, him feeling trapped, always finding himself going back to the hood, trapped in the ghetto. And These Walls offers the same sort of theme. I mean, in These Walls, which again, it's Bilal, Anawise, and I'm pretty sure, and Thundercat now. It essentially is the same thing. Kendrick still feels trapped in the walls of the cocoon, but this time it's like he's using but he feels even more trapped because he's using his fame and influence for sex and revenge. And essentially there's quite an interesting story to this song, These Walls. So basically there's this girl at a party, he has a man who's in jail right now, and the girl kind of feels, sad. She feels lost because her man's in jail and she feels alone. So essentially she looks for Kendrick, to sort of, take her pain away. And the only way she's going to find sort of healing is through sex. So, and Kendrick uses his influence, for sex and revenge. The revenge part is essentially that friend who's in jail actually was one of the people who killed Kendrick's friend's brother. That sort of story was expressed in Kendrick's 2012 album Good Kid, Mad City in the song Dying of Thirst. And essentially in this song, These Walls, Kendrick is getting revenge on the man. Okay, so you killed my friend's brother, and now just for that I'm out here fucking with your girl, I'm having sex with her. And essentially, the reason it's called These Walls is again because Kendrick feels trapped. He feels trapped because he's using his fame and influence for bad things, sex and revenge. So that's These Walls. Next up, we have You. And as a result of These Walls, where Kendrick is essentially using his influence for sex and revenge, You is Kendrick feeling depressed. It's him battling depression. His mental health is terrible. He's trying to drink the pain away. And then You is basically him kind of like screaming. He feels so much pressure that the people are putting upon him. They want him to be a sort of hip-hop savior, but the thing is, he has no confidence in himself. He can't be a hip-hop savior. He doesn't see himself as a good person because of what he's done in the past. He's essentially let so many people down in the past. Now that he's famous, he's forgotten about so many other people. He's touched so many people with his music, but he forgot to touch, for example, his sister, who got pregnant when she was like 15. She got pregnant as a teenager, and Kendrick feels bad because he feels like it's primarily his fault because he wasn't there for her. He's the big brother and he's supposed to be there for her, and he really didn't have that influence on her as Kendrick has with the people. So he feels bad because of that. He also talks about Chad Keaton. Chad Keaton is one of Kendrick's best friends, and from Compton, and he sadly died in 2013 on a drive-by shooting. Although the only thing that Kendrick really did, honestly, he just kind of FaceTimed him because he couldn't actually go visit him while he was in the hospital. But sadly, he died, and Kendrick never actually got to see him face to face because he was on tour. This was like a year after he released Good Kid, Mad City, so he was definitely busy. But yeah, the overall theme of You is just him, feeling no confidence in himself. He hates himself. He's guilty. He feels guilty. And yeah. And then we have All Right. We're in All Right. It's definitely a flip side to you, you know. You's kind of like where he's just at an all-time low. He feels sad. He feels depressed, terrible. And All Right, it's basically, again, similar to King Kante. It's this song of black empowerment, how we all need to rise up to fight against police brutality, racism, you know. But this song is quite inspirational. I mean, even this song was literally used in the 2020 George Floyd Black Lives Matter protest, you know. But in All Right, it's basically, you know, this how we have to rise up. You know, we've been just sitting and not doing anything for a long time. We have to get up. We have to fight the power, you know. And Kendrick goes on by saying, you know, everything's gonna be all right if we just believe in God, you know. And he's using, and how we need to use God as like our strength. We need how there's still hope, how we can still fight, you know. So yeah, it's basically just a song, you know, talks about it's like a Black Lives Matter approval. It definitely approves to BLM how we all need to stand up and fight, you know. So this fight racism, fight police brutality, you know, so there can finally be some justice in the world. And then we have For Sale, and in For Sale, Kendrick introduces us to Lucy, also known as Lucifer. Lucifer is a demon, but Kendrick names her Lucy, and he kind of has her as like a girl in this song. I mean, you see Lucy kind of talking to Kendrick, you know, tempting him to give in to his vices. But most importantly, Lucy, the demon, wants Kendrick to sell his soul for fame and riches. You know, he wants him to like use his money, you know, for, again, terrible things like sex or revenge, and also go on joyrides and throw his money out the window while he's on a car. But yeah, essentially in For Sale, it's Lucy tempting Kendrick, wanting him to give in to his vices, you know, which vices is bad, immoral behavior. But yeah, that's For Sale. Anyway, then up next we have Mama, and Mama is essentially like a flip side. It's a flip side to For Sale, the opposite of For Sale. You know, in For Sale, we found that Lucy was kind of trying to tempt Kendrick to sell his soul for fame and riches. In Mama, we have Kendrick talking about his trip to South Africa in 2014. Before recording this album, Kendrick actually took a trip to South Africa, which inspired some tracks such as Complexion, and You Ain't Gotta Lie, Mama said. But in Mama, Kendrick essentially surrounds himself with Mother Nature, talks about his trip to South Africa and how he honestly just needed to reconnect with his roots, you know, to just kind of find his place in the world. He seemed kind of lost in a way. He seemed lost in the music industry and the fame and the money. And Mama is just basically him connecting with Mother Nature. He also speaks on him having all this newfound knowledge, you know, that I know everything, you know, I know culture, I know street shit, you know, just basically talking about everything that he's learned, his experiences, I can't talk, his experiences with life and also the music industry. But the reason it's called Mama is because he's surrounding himself with Mother Nature, or he surrounded himself with Mother Nature in South Africa. Mother Nature, Mama. There's the connection. Then again, we have Hood Politics, and Hood Politics is the opposite of Mama. And Mama, Kendrick talked about how he knew so much and he had possessed all this newfound knowledge. In Hood Politics, Kendrick talks about his A1 foundation, which is Compton. A1 foundation, essentially, how Kendrick puts it, is like a foundation that's kind of like strong. A1, it's elite, an elite, strong foundation. And he just basically talks about a time when all he knew was hood. The only thing he had really knowledge of was just the hood, Compton, gangbanging, street shit, violence, hustling. Basically, before he had acquired all this newfound knowledge, you know. And yep, that's it, politics. Then up next, we have How Much a Dollar Cost, featuring James Fauntleroy and this other dude, I cannot remember his name. So in How Much a Dollar Cost, again, it's Kendrick talking about his trip to South Africa. He comes across a homeless man who essentially asks him for $1, just $1. Kendrick kind of refuses and starts getting kind of annoyed the way the homeless man kind of looked at him, like, you know, kind of like he looked at him with a face of disapproval, like, damn, you won't even give me $1. And Kendrick essentially starts getting annoyed, you know, because it's like, why is he looking at me like that, you know? and he doesn't like how the dude's asking him for money. But basically, the entire theme of how much a dollar costs is basically Kendrick talking about what does it mean to be wealthy, what does it mean to be rich, questioning the value of a dollar. And essentially, there's this big realization in the end where that old homeless man is actually God, you know, and essentially God is just disappointed at Kendrick for putting more value over a dollar than a homeless man. Kendrick essentially put more value over in a dollar than a human being, which is kind of messed up if you think about it. And he essentially felt selfish. He didn't want to give the man his dollar. And it alludes back to feeling institutionalized, you know, these sort of thoughts of Kendrick feeling trapped, not just in the ghetto, but feeling trapped, like, you know, feeling trapped with these thoughts of fame and how it means nothing, you know. And again, it alludes back to that, you know, and essentially God banishes Kendrick from having a spot in heaven. You can no longer be in heaven anymore. You were selfish. You put more value over a dollar. You put more value in a dollar than a human being. So, yeah, that's how much a dollar costs. Questioning the value of money. Then again, up next, we have Complexion, Azula featuring Rhapsody. In this song, Rhapsody and Kendrick Lamar choose to talk about sort of the beauty in being black and how it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter if you're black, yellow, white. Your color doesn't matter. What matters is what's in here, is what's inside your heart. That's what truly matters. And basically, how it doesn't matter what color you are. We all need to learn to just love each other for who we are, for our personality, and we shouldn't really judge one another based on our color. And essentially, this song was produced by legendary producer Pete Rock. The hip-hop jazz production is quite soothing, quite accommodating, also approves to the universal Zulu nation. And Kendrick essentially references Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela kind of had this philosophy of, you know, on the only way to achieve equality is through peace. This song actually is similar to that, because this song contains themes of, you know, how we should all, the only way we're going to achieve equality and is through peace. We need to unite. We need to fight the enemy, which is, you know, our oppressors. And it doesn't matter what color you are. We all need to unite and fight our oppressors, you know. All black people need to stop messing around with the color subject. They all need to unite and fight the oppressors. And then we have Blacker the Berry. This song is a flip side to Complexion. In Complexion, Kendrick essentially talks about the beauty in being black. In the Blacker the Berry, Kendrick essentially talks about all the bad things that come with being black. You know, everything that a black person necessarily has to face and struggle with, such as police brutality, the color of their skin, being called the N-word, just basically how they have to face racism, you know. You have to go through that. So it's definitely a flip side to Complexion. But in Blacker the Berry, Kendrick proceeds to talk about how all the injustices that surround the black man in America, you know, and in the end, he called himself a hypocrite, because it's like, you know, all of us, we want peace, you know. We attend Black Panther movements, celebrate February like it's my B-Day, as Kendrick likes to put it, because I'm pretty sure February is Black Lives is Black Pride Month. You know, it's like the month where you celebrate, you know, a lot of cultural black figures that are prominent in history. And essentially call himself a hypocrite, because it's like, I'm out here wanting peace. I want peace with with the world. I want peace with my community, but at the end of the day, I've killed a dude that's blacker than me. So it's basically this entire idea of how essentially us black, sorry, not us, I'm not black, and how essentially, you know, black people want peace within their community, but it's like they're the ones that are as also doing the black on black killing. They're literally killing each other. They're killing their own race. So it's like, you're out here wanting peace, but you literally are contributing to the black on black killing. That's why he calls himself a hypocrite. And it's also a reference, the Blacker the Berry, that's also a reference to Tupac's 1993 Keep Your Head Up, where he says the blacker the berry, except Kendrick kind of puts a negative connotation to the black of the berry, saying the black of the berry, the bigger I shoot. This the black I am, the more guns I'll carry and shoot. You know, the more guns I'll carry to increase the violence. So yeah, definitely a negative flip side to Complexion, but still a politically charged black song. And what's interesting is that Kendrick actually wrote that 3 years ago. So he wrote that in 2012 when I'm pretty sure I forgot his name, but this kid or this black individual was killed by a police officer in 2012. If you guys know the name of that dude, you know, definitely comment down below. But yeah. And then we have You Ain't Gotta Lie, Mama Said. This is one of the songs that actually Kendrick wrote prior to his visit to South Africa. So again, his visit inspired this song. So when You Ain't Gotta Lie, Kendrick, it's basically Kendrick talking in the voice of his mom. You know, you see that, and that's kind of genius. You know, I loved how he did that. I loved how he kind of like made it look like his mom was talking. You know, his flow is absolutely amazing in this song and just in this album. My God. But in this song, essentially, Kendrick's mom is basically saying how you act different. Like when Kendrick comes in the hood, he tends to act different with people, you know, he tends to put on some sort of act to kind of fit in, you know. But overall, the main theme of this song is that Kendrick's basically telling us, the public, that look, you don't have to lie to be accepted. You know, a lot of us nowadays, you know, we lie to feel like, to have people accept us. But basically saying that you don't have to lie to feel accepted into your friend group. You know, just be yourself, just be who you are, and people will accept you. You don't have to say that, look, I got cars, I got money. You know, you don't have to stunt or anything to be accepted. You know, just be yourself, man. Just be yourself. Stick to what you know, stick to your roots, and you will be accepted. Trust me, you don't have to lie to be accepted. And then in we have up next is the song I, and this song essentially Kendrick, this is like a flip side to the song You know. In You, we saw that Kendrick was battling, his confidence was terrible, his mental health was terrible, he was battling depression. But in this song, Kendrick is confident, you know, he loves himself. And yes, although he does acknowledge his mistakes that he's made in the past, he does acknowledge that, yes, I'm a human being, I'm not perfect, I've made mistakes in the past, and I'm quite regretful for them. But I love myself. He's basically saying that he loves himself, he has confidence in himself, and that, yeah, just love yourself, man, you know? Like, yes, you know, and how us humans are not perfect. We all need to love ourselves, and yeah, everything will be all right. And then we have Mortal Man. This is the last song off To Pimp a Butterfly. And this song, essentially, Kendrick starts off the song by saying, when shit hit the fan, is you still a fan? Basically, it starts off by saying that if I ever get caught like in an accident or in a problem, if the industry ever decides to cut me off, or if they ever find cocaine in my car, will you as a fan still support me? Like, will you still be there when I'm in trouble? Essentially, he's basically asking his fans, you know, will they still support him through the good and the bad? And essentially, he's addressing kind of like the fans and maybe calling out the followers also in his fan base. Because, you know, followers, as Blackie Speaks likes to put it, are people that just are Instagram followers. They're just here to see what's going on. They're the yes man, you know. It's like they're just going to be with you just to be with you, you know. And it doesn't matter. And like, they'll just say yes to everything you do. You know, they're not gonna tell you, oh no, bro, that's wrong, don't do that. Nope, they're just there. They're the yes man. They're gonna say yes to everything you do. They don't care if you hurt yourself. But essentially, the fans, which Kendrick addresses, is saying that, look, are you guys gonna be there for me when I'm in trouble? And then, towards the end of the song, you know, the beat starts to fade. The piano kind of starts getting into the sort of heaven type of sound, and towards the end, we have Kendrick reciting this famous poem that he's been reciting through the entire album, you know. And what's interesting about that poem is that as the album proceeds, as you scroll down, you know, and keep going from track to track, Kendrick adds more to it as each track goes on and on. But in Mortal Man, the poem is essentially complete. The album is basically done, basically saying, and in the poem he says, I remember you were conflicted, misusing your influence, abusing my power, full of resentment that turned into a deep depression. I found myself screaming in a hotel room. The evils I wanted to self-destruct. The evils of Lucy were all around me, so I went running for answers. But that didn't stop survivor's guilt. And A1, my foundation was, and I don't know, like I forget the entire poem, but essentially all this time he's been reading this poem to none other than West Coast legend Tupac, which I thought was quite interesting, you know. And the connection between the poem and Tupac is quite interesting because in the poem, Kendrick essentially was conflicted and he was misusing his influence. This is a reference back to songs such as These Walls, as well as, you know, as well as Lucy kind of like tempting him to sell his soul, such as in For Sale. And essentially the poem kind of relates back to, you know, songs in the album such as Lucy, These Walls, Hood Politics, and it's quite interesting how it all ties in together, man. You know, very interesting. But yeah, and I can see why that would be directed towards Tupac, because Tupac was definitely an individual that was kind of troubled, you know, not just mentally but physically. I mean, he went through a lot in his life, you know, kind of like Kendrick. So, and originally the album was going to be called To Pimp a Caterpillar, Tupac, Tupac, To Pimp a Caterpillar. I don't know what the U, but essentially towards the end, Kendrick takes snippets of this 1994 interview that Tupac did, and they just basically, and Kendrick makes it look like he's interviewing Tupac. He's not actually interviewing him, but he made it look like he did. And the way he did that was just quite genius. I was like, oh my God, that is genius. I just loved how he pulled like snippets of that 1994 interview into this song, which is amazing. But, you know, Kendrick and Tupac just proceed to talk about, you know, themes of public image, black culture, racism, and just the state of hip hop in a way, you know, kind of like the state of the world. And towards this song, Kendrick finds himself that he's like sort of the new generation of leaders, following prominent leaders such as Tupac himself, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Nelson Mandela. So Kendrick sees himself as like the voice of the new generation, and Tupac basically tells him that, you know, you need to like talk to the youth. You need to get all the teenagers to do what you've been doing, you know, to reach out to the people that feel lost, you know, to speak out against police brutality, you know, all these different themes. But yep, that is the end of this album. Wow. This album is amazing. The production is amazing. Definitely a classic from Kendrick's catalog, you know, and next to albums such as Good Kid, Mad City and Section 80. But yep, that's my review of this album. Oh yes, and the overall rating I give this album is a 10 out of 10. This album is quite enjoyable. It's a classic in Kendrick's catalog. It's amazing. I quite enjoyed it. The messages in this album is just quite amazing, quite insightful, and honestly just opened my perspective and my scope on, you know, what it's like to be famous, and how it doesn't matter how much money you have. In the end, money will never fix the pain. But yeah, guys, 10 out of 10. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, comment down below what other album or songs you guys want me to review next, and I'll see you guys in the next video.